Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, two places where you're listening and you're watching on Facebook Live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. And I hope you're enjoying your morning, having a great morning this morning here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, having some fun, relaxing, enjoying the day. And I'm excited to be with you always inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Cafe Kubal there for home delivery, mobile cafe, and their neighborhood cafes. The home delivery will deliver your favorites right to you, the coffee right to your doorstep. And you can find out more information on that by going to WakeUpCallDT.com, going to the Central New York tab, and clicking on Cafe Kubal. Or you can go to cafekubal.com. You can also find all the information on the mobile cafe on my site and on cafekubal.com on how you can fill out the form to have the mobile cafe drive to your neighborhood or place of business. And of course, you can always go to their locations on 324 West Water Street, 3501 James Street, 401 South Salina Street, inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital, and their newest location on 208 North Townsend Street, all in Syracuse, New York. So make sure you head over there today and grab yourself the DT special. That's what's inside of my cup. Whatever's inside of your cup, you can have that today. I know Coach liked the dark roast, black coffee, nothing in it. I like my pumpkin spice chai with almond milk, and that is the DT special. You can go out and get that today at any location as well as for mobile pickup. So I want to thank Cafe Kubal for all they do here in the community. Very excited for today's broadcast. Inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin', we have an Orange Out on the show today. That Orange Out is going to feature first and foremost Syracuse Orange alum Donnie Simmons. Donnie Simmons is going to be joining the show, former defensive end from 2012 to 2015 will be joining the show. And that'll be right around 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by Sam Rogers, who played for Syracuse as a long snapper from 2011 to 2014. He'll be joining the broadcast at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll round out today's show, as we always do every Tuesday, with a fantastic place and a fantastic message. The ingredients to success, proudly brought to you by Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, giving you every single week, giving you ingredients to success from a topic that we pick instantaneously in the moment. So definitely make sure that you hang out for that and have some fun with us coming up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in just a little bit around 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be doing that. So much appreciation and much thanks to Avicoli's for all that they do for the community and how much they care, and of course their fantastic food and impeccable service that I got to experience over the weekend. So big shout out to Avicoli's, and a big thanks to Avicoli's. I think they saw me like 3 or 4 times in 3 days. It was like I think it was twice in 3 days or something like that, or 3 times in 4 days, and that's just a testament to the fact that I really like what they do. So big shout out to Avicoli's, and a big thanks to everybody over at Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. So, plenty of show coming up for you today during the Orange Out. I'm not wearing orange, but I'm wearing orange, if you know what I mean. So I got sporting this shirt. I don't think I've ever worn this shirt on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, my cursive orange. So I'll be sporting that today, and very excited about that. Before we get into anything, though, I want to give a big time shout out to West Genesee, as well as to the Wildcat Sports Pub. We got to go back home yesterday, and it's been a long time. It's been a very, very long time since I've been able to be in that building for a live on-site broadcast, and that is obviously due to Corona and everything that's gone on. So we've had to be very, very patient, and I'm excited to say that we got to finally do it. You know, practice social distancing, wearing our masks, and all of that, doing everything we're supposed to do. But having the opportunity to finally go back and be there. West Genesee, you know, for the last 3 years plus, I've hosted a Wildcat special, a spotlight broadcast every single month dedicated to the West Genesee Wildcats at the Wildcat Sports Pub exclusively. once a month. We're there. We've been there with marching band. We've been there with lacrosse, I believe, soccer, basketball, football, literally, just you name it. We've been there, girls and boys, and so very excited to have done everything that we've gotten to do up to this point. I want to thank Mike Burns, and I want to thank, all of the coaches and all of the staffs and all of the parents and guardians and brothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends, and of course, all of the players for being a part of it. I want to thank the student body, and West Genesee's community is incredible. They've always been very, very good to me, so I'm very honored and I'm very excited to be able to have this opportunity come back and to be able to do this once again. So it means the world to me that we got to get out there yesterday, and obviously we had to minimize our numbers and what we could do. With the numbers that we had to minimize to, you all showed up. If this was a normal day, and I told one of the parents this, I'm like, I'm confident that if there were no restrictions, we would have packed the entire place, because what we could have, we utilized it. And, that is a credit to the kids. That's a credit to Joe Corley and the football team. It's a credit to the parents and the guardians and the families. They made that show incredible, and you can go back and watch both portions of that show by going to facebook.com/livenowdt, where you are right now. You can also go to facebook.com/wakeupcalldt. I'm going to share it there, and I'm going to put it on YouTube today on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So you'll be able to watch it in all different places, but definitely check it out. Incredible time with all the boys, and I want to give a shout out and I want to give a thanks to all the kids. First and foremost, I want to thank head coach Joe Corley. I asked him when he wanted to do the event as soon as there was like some opportunity or clarity that we could have it, and he was like, now. It's like, right now. Let's do it now. So that definitely means a lot to me, and more than I can say. So I do want to thank Coach Corley for that, and I want to thank all the kids that were a part of the event. Braden McNeil, Mike Sarakis, as well as Dan Becker, and I want to also thank Jake Mueller, Nick Louise, Marcus Vogt, and Jack Wilmsmeyer for all being a part of the show. And I want to thank the entire team. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank all the assistant coaches. And of course, I want to thank Joe Corley and Mike Burns and Wes Jenny. And I want to thank Danny Tome and the entire team at the Wildcat. Shout out to Nikki, who was running the bar yesterday, and to everybody that was working in the kitchen. Much thanks and much love to each and every single one of you for being out there and being a part of this. It has been such a long time, and it was a very special moment because, as you know, paying attention to Wake Up Call, you know that we just got back out into the community. As of October 1st, we started doing live shows on site again due to everything with Corona. And so, on I said the first chance I get in October, I'm taking it. October 1st, that's number one. And we did 2 shows that day. We were at Cafe Kubal in the morning for this show, the morning show of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, your normally scheduled show. We were at Cafe Kubal on 324 West Water Street in downtown Syracuse. Awesome time. Great stuff. And got my pumpkin spice chai. I was very excited. And I was there with Coach Sanfilippo of Baldwinsville. And then we, later on that day, went to Trapper's Pizza Pub, and we did the event with ESM and with Rachel, and big shout out to Rachel as well as to Cam that were a part of the show, and a big shout out to their head coach Bob Harrington of ESM girls basketball for the Spartans. We got to go out there and do that. Thanks to Alex and the team over at Trappers on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. So we got to do all of that. And then, but the West Jenny event, the last time I did a live show anywhere was at the Wildcat with West Jenny, with the boys lacrosse team back on March 8th. And so to be back there, to be back doing live events means the world to me. To be able to go back to the Wildcat after that was the last place I got to be at was very surreal, and that was on a Monday, and this event was on a Monday. So, it's almost a half a year to the day that was the last time we were there. So hopefully we'll be there for the rest of my life. Hopefully we'll be there for the rest of so many good things coming up here. So I'm very, very excited, and I'm very happy to be back. So big shout out again to the Wildcat in West Genesee. We had a fantastic event, and you can go back and watch those videos on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. They'll be added to Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT today, and they'll be on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. So, with all that being stated, like I told you, today is an orange out, so we're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we will be joined by Mr. Donnie Simmons, who played for Syracuse at defensive end from 2012 to 2015. He joins the broadcast right after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, of course, and inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and you're watching on Facebook Live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', we have first up on today's show in an orange out, we'll be featuring Donnie Simmons. Donnie is joining us from White Plains, New York, and Syracuse, as you know, in recent history, hasn't done a ton of recruiting in the state of New York, and Donnie being able to come from White Plains, and I'm happy that not only was he recruited, that he came in, but that he got to get out there on the field, because I'd love to see more New York on this New York team for Syracuse. So with that being said, Donnie is coming in with us this morning, and I'm so excited to have him on the show. Donnie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Donnie, you know, first and foremost, you know, catch everybody up. What's been going on? You played from 2012 to 2015, so this is going to sound strange. A half a decade ago, you were on the team.
I know.
How strange is that?
It's crazy how time flies, but during my tenure at Syracuse, you know, I learned so much. I actually, my 2011 was my redshirt freshman year, so I learned a lot, but then I was on the field 2012 into 2015, and it was a very fruitful experience, to say the least. You know, having my time with both Coach Marone, who's now at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Coach Schaefer, who under Coach Marone was the D coordinator and then became the head coach, learned from both of them. And I had the fortune to play with a bunch of great guys. And I also had the pleasure of starting my last year, my fifth year senior year. Yeah. And afterwards, you know, when the NFL didn't work out and realized that, you know, football unfortunately had to come to a close, I just pursued the professional route and left, thankfully, with a master's degree. Went into librarianship, so worked at the White Plains Public Library for a little bit, and now I'm teaching at Westchester Community College as an academic librarian, and I've been there for a year so far, and, you know, it's been great. So just kind of my blessings, and, you know, and thankful that this past Syracuse football experience helped me, you know, lead a way to the professional world.
That coming here from Donnie Simmons this morning. At Donnie, to go from being on the field, being a dog, being a fighter, being a killer on the field, to being a librarian. So bring
it's a weird. Whenever I tell this to people, it's very shocking, surprising. I'm so surprised I'm a librarian because they look at me like I'm security. You know, this, you know, big black guy with a beard. It's like, what's Suge Knight doing behind the check-in, check-out desk? But, you know, it's it's crazy because, you know, it was really a matter of circumstance. And that's the funny thing about just situations and how they play out. So at the end of my sophomore year, I tore my ACL in spring ball. And in the fall semester, I was, for the most part, away from all football operations. But I was still training, and I was still going through therapy. But in terms of practice and even eating with the team, you know, at dinner or, you know, going to meetings, that was just not in the cards. I was just going to class and, as I mentioned, going through therapy. So I personally just needed some extra change in my pocket and elected to, you know, try to find a job on campus. And there was an opening at the MLK library at a building called Sims Hall, and that's where most of my classes were. And that's how I, you know, came to discover this job position. And like I mentioned, at first it was just something, you know, for me to do to pass the time and for me to put change in my pocket. But coincidentally, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do professionally. I was just taking classes, but I was just caught in limbo. Like, what am I going to be doing after graduation? And me and my dad, you know, he's also an educator. He was like, you know what, man? I mean, looking through the different avenues of librarianship, you know, you can really flip this career and go into education. And at the time, and even now, it just made sense. So as I was working, I started to learn more about the profession. And yes, when you typically look at librarians, the older white woman that's telling you hush in the library, yes, that is a stereotype, that is the stigma. Yeah. However, it is a growing profession, especially K through 12, and it lacks diversity. So I saw that as a great opportunity to represent not only to young men of color that there are opportunities in different avenues in education like librarianship, but being a man of color in the profession, let alone playing football, just adds a healthy blend of diversity into the librarian profession. So when I elected to go down that route, after I graduated, I went to, you know, the program on campus, MLS, Master of Library and Informational Science, and I knew that leaving Syracuse with the degree, I was going to go into education somehow. It just so happened that I landed at community college.
Yeah, and an incredible story and a very unique story in your story, that coming from Donnie Simmons this morning. He played Syracuse Orange football, came in 2011, played from 2012 to 2015, and you know, I think that's amazing. I would be remiss if I didn't go back to the statement which I never thought in a million years I would hear on my show, and I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, and that is, what is Suge Knight doing behind the checkout counter?
No, it's true, man. It was something to get adjusted to because, well, not me. I think just the world. in general, because when I first started working as a librarian, I still had like my Syracuse football body. Not saying I don't have it now, but I looked a little awkward. It was like, the movie The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible was behind the desk, and the fit just wasn't right. I mean, I was just chilling there, and then nobody would really ask me questions because they were probably looking at me like, "What's he doing over there? He's not a librarian." So it's that reality, and I find it to be hilarious, but it is very true. And like I mentioned before, I think it's the opportunity to change the landscape of the profession in its entirety. So yeah, that's just what it is. And sometimes even to this day, it's like, word, librarian. So it's just funny at this point.
Yeah, and what I think is amazing is the fact, like you said, the stereotype that there's like an old white woman that's hushing you and whatnot. If a football player, if a big dude, big defensive end was like, shh, I think everybody would. I really do. I think you have an advantage right now, Johnny.
Listen, man, everything is tactical, Dan. I'm telling you, it's like these little things I just think about is like, how can I optimize my position? Like, how can I make this work? But yeah, it's just very unique. Like the position I'm in right now, it's just crazy how things kind of just turn about, because I would have never thought that this is something that I would be doing. As a matter of fact, my original professional outlook was more towards commentating.
Yeah.
And at first it was like a strong burn for me to go and pursue that professional avenue, but after a while I think I was just I was just concerned about other things, and I think I got lost in terms of what I wanted after college. And I think that's the beauty of the football journey, because it takes you in different directions. You might have one initial, let's just say, plan or goal when you first enroll, and it might go that way throughout your, entire college experience. But, through different situations, like if it wasn't for my injury, Lord knows where I would be. And, I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And like you talked about, I mean, it's incredible and it's amazing. And as long as you're happy, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think, no, absolutely. I think more importantly, I've always, not say had an affinity for working with kids, but I've always been around kids. And I knew to some degree that this would be something that I would like to do. But as I mentioned before, going into Syracuse, knowing that Newhouse is the #1 communication school in the country, arguably, it was just an alluring feature to the college. But even prior to Syracuse, I did a lot of work in the community when it came to like working different camps, whether it's football or basketball. And my dad, as I mentioned, was a guidance counselor. He was an educator, and he has always been committed to working with kids, teens, especially young men and women of color. I would say more in the high school range. And when I knew that in librarianship you can become a school librarian and you can then have the opportunity to improve literacy in your community, kids that reflect you, that look like you, or just me looking like them and seeing me and having some form of model for them to either imitate or to look up to. I think that was big for me as well, helping the communities that I know need the most help, especially when it comes to literacy, whether it's reading a book or online literacy, knowing where you get your source so it can help you academically. Because when we look at the disparity in education with young, students of color and their white peers, there is an enormous disparity. So to try to close that gap the best way that I can, I think that's the key. So I would say it trumps, like my passion is more for the students and for the kids rather than like the actual librarianship responsibilities, because I think that comes with it, but it's really for the younger generation.
Yeah, and I think I think it's amazing, Donnie, and we're here with Donnie Simmons this morning from Syracuse Orange Football History, speaking on his work and working with the kids since being at Syracuse. I think it's incredible. and I've always felt a connection. No, and I mean, you deserve to be commended for it because, you know, you said a lot of things. I mean, obviously the kids are our future. Hate is taught, love is taught. So, you know, it's important for you to be a part of teaching, you know, the right things and trying to help the future of this world. And not only that, but like you said, seeing somebody that looks like them, that, you know, that I look like them and they could come here and be a part. Like, that's something that people talk about in all different places of leadership, is that, you know, people want to have that connection. I mean, for goodness sakes, I mean, we look at it, and even though it's fictional, and even though it's a movie, and even though it was a comic book, when he passed away, when Chadwick Boseman passed away, you know, one of the actors that I love, not from just that, but from Draft Day, and where he played an incredible role in Draft Day. But I mean, this is a man that played so many different roles. He played Thurgood Marshall. I mean,
Hollywood is making sure that he played every black iconic historical figure. You know, he played James Brown, he played Thurgood Marshall, and Jackie Robinson, along with T'Challa as Black Panther. I find that to be so unique in terms of what he has had on his resume. And to your point, I think that in order to, I mean, when we look at how, you know, men like Chadwick Boseman just represent like a light into a lot of kids and who they look up to, I think it's extremely key. And I feel like as adults, our emphasis should be on the younger generation, always. Not saying that your career pursuit has to be in that world, but we should at least consider the benefit of passing down the gems to our kids. And this goes beyond the color aspect, because I think that all students deserve a good education, like throughout the entire landscape, nationwide. I just, in my particular focus, like especially if we go back to your point with Chadwick Boseman, he was a pivotal inspiration to many, because on that scale, we have never seen a superhero to that degree, like a black superhero that has so much power that can stand toe-to-toe with the best of superheroes. And yes, it is a fictional character, but it goes beyond that. It's the lessons that you learn from the superhero. And I feel like that's why, like, the Spider-Mans of the world are so important. You know, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. They both connect. And when you look at a strong group of, you know, black people, let alone black women, because the Dora Milaje were nothing but black women that protected a black king. And the visual is extremely important, just on face value. And those are the little things that we need to consider when we are dealing with not only education, you know, getting back to the, you know, librarianship role. Like, when we look at education, we look at representation and the demographic that we serve. I think it's extremely important. So yeah, you made a great point.
No, and I appreciate, you know, you expanding on that, because to go to that, and you named my two favorite characters, which are Spider-Man and Black Panther, and I grew up with Spider-Man my whole life, and Venom and all of that, and then Black Panther, it was a few years before the movie came out. I was like, you know, let me just dial into this character, let me learn more about it, you know, let me get around it, and I became such a fan. And then, you know, you go back and you see, like you said, like what Chadwick has done and what he got to be involved in, and they talk about it's not about how much time you have on the earth, it's how you spend it.
Absolutely.
And for him to play so many iconic roles in the black community, but not just the black community, in history of the Jackie Robinsons and the Thurgood Marshalls and the James Browns, like those are characters that, I mean, you know, people, these are entertainers, these are you know, mile markers. Thurgood Marshall, I remember I did a project in elementary school, and he was the project that I had. I had to draw a picture of him, I had to research him and write a report about the first African-American Supreme Court justice. And so to me, it's so cool to see him connect in all those ways, and then it connects, you know, in my life, you know, it inspired me. But like you said, I mean, even though this is a fictional character, this is a character who, you look at this and you say, okay, so in Marvel, the one who has the most money is Tony Stark. The most powerful one is the Hulk. This is this and this is that. Then you meet T'Challa, and it's like, no, vibranium is the best thing. It's what Captain America's shield is made of. There's nobody richer than Wakanda, and
Exactly.
and this is a king who is also the protector, and then he's protected by the Dora Mirage, this group of women. And I remember this one scene with Denai Guerrera, who I love from Walking Dead as well, where she plays Michonne. And if I ever had to have a team, how do you not choose Michonne with that sword? But
listen, man, Black Widow wanted no smoke. Her in the movie, she wanted no smoke when T'Challa pulled up to his car. And yeah, it's just that visual. I think that was powerful. And I think we're mentioning a lot of points here. I want to try to somehow tie T'Challa into this, but the characters that he filled, Thurgood Marshall, James Brown, and Jackie Robinson, they were not only pivotal black figures, but they were figures in American history. Like, American history.
Yeah.
Like, it's all involved. It's not segregated. It's integrated. It's interwoven. And it's just as important. And to add that extra, significance onto the characters that he played is something that we also need to recognize as well. So it's more than just the character. It's a part of the history. It's a part of our DNA as a country. And, shout out to him, man. Shout out to him.
And I think it's one of the toughest, and they say, and I think I put this up, I was like, they asked the question, can you miss somebody you never met? And I think, not just with Chadwick, which was very heartbreaking to a lot of people and heartbreaking to me, because in my head I'm like, but that's the guy. This is and knowing the plans that Marvel had for him, I'm sure, to put him in the front and whatnot. This is a guy that wielded the Infinity Gauntlet in the comic books. He had that power. So, and now that the X-Men are in there, he has a relationship with Storm. I wanted to see all that.
I know. No, it's tough. It's tough, especially now. I don't know the intricacies, so I apologize to my diehard Marvel fans. But Marvel just acquired the X-Men in terms of movie production, so they could have easily made that smooth transition from blending those stories where T'Challa can then be a more pivotal character, because even if you look at different comic issues, like there's this Marvel issue called The Illuminati with the likes of Tony Stark, Mr. Fantastic, Professor X. But T'Challa was right there, and what they dealt with the most, the high stakes issues that need to be discussed behind closed doors that weren't in the public, even to other Marvel superhero characters. And tying this all together, like what Chadwick meant for the character and what the character today means to not only the black community, but the Marvel community, and how powerful that is extremely important. It's just that we look at the micro because of what we know historically and how black figures, let alone black superheroes, aren't necessarily at the vanguard or at the forefront of attention, whether it's in Hollywood or in comic books in general, especially when it comes to original characters. It just expands the narrative of representation, of how iconic it is to have a black man that was Chadwick Boseman representing all of these characters, and going back to what we see on film and how we are now visualized in a positive light instead of just fulfilling a limited role. We are now kings and queens. That is just, it's bigger than life itself, because you're giving a community, you're giving a group of people a different perspective on where they stand in different avenues, whether it be comic books or just in real life. So I think it ties into different facets of life.
Yeah.
And it's all about that. It's all about that journey.
And that's what I think is so cool. Speaking here with Donnie Simmons this morning from Syracuse Orange football history. I mean, it's to me it's so awesome because, like you said, I mean, it's, you know, kings and queens. Like I watch the Black Panther, and the Black Panther inspires me, and I see all the good, and I see, you know, the amazing. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, think about that. America's always been known as like the greatest country ever, and all the wealth and all of this and all of that. And I was like, for the creators in Marvel to go to Africa, to go to a place that is consistently not given the credit, not in the spotlight, third world countries, no technology, no money, no this, no that, and to know that like deep in the heart of Africa, here's Wakanda that's hiding in plain sight, and they're the richest nation. They're the nation that's peaceful. They're the nation that, you know, has figured out how to work with each other's tribes and whatnot for the most part. And so I thought that was so incredible because it told the story. And to me, it was like to see all of that and to know how much the Black Panther moved me. And how, like, after 2 years of waiting for the movie, I was ready to pick it and go out there and be like, where is this movie? So,
Exactly.
So for me, you know what I mean? It's like to experience all of that, and, you know, my culture to be Hispanic, Italian, and Sudanese, for me to be able to feel that in the way that I felt it was so special, so times a million to the black community that never has seen a hero like this, a hero this prominent. So it gives me chills in the sense of I love the character, but then above that, it's like, you know, when I grew up as a kid, there were characters and heroes that look like me. Now there's characters and heroes that look like other people, and I think that that's so amazing and compelling and beautiful. And, you know, I am heartbroken, and I want to cry this morning thinking about Chadwick Boseman, and the same thing about Robin Williams when he passed away, and I felt like my uncle died.
Robin Williams was huge, man. Oh, he was huge. Like, the loss of Robin Williams and how dynamic he was, because I think that in terms of a comedian, how he was able to be brilliant both as a comedian and an actor, he was just so fluid. And it was unfortunate the fate that he had at the latter part of his life. And yeah, I was just as hurt. And no shade at all to Will Smith, because I really like him as an actor. But Aladdin, you can't redo Robin Williams. You know, you just can't do it. You cannot. I mean, it was almost like, listen, let's just wipe this movie off and let's just keep the original, because you can't take away his presence as Genie.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way. And to your point, yeah, there are certain figures, especially when we look at celebrities, that just have a significant imprint on our, I guess, like, setting the standard. Like, Robin Williams set the standard, you know, for both comedy and acting, because he was brilliant in both. He was brilliant in both.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's so, and I love that you brought up Aladdin, because I like Will Smith, and I want to give Will Smith credit, but when he was doing the "You Ain't Never Had a Friend Like Me," and they changed it up a little bit, tell me you didn't hear Miami from Will Smith in that.
I know. And listen, whenever in most movies, Will Smith is playing himself. He's not playing a different character. Like, he's playing Will Smith, and he tried his best to have a blend of his style while accommodating the viewers and making it as, you know, kid-friendly as possible, while also adding like a tad of magic into it. Yeah. But he didn't have that magic that Robin Williams put on the screen in Aladdin at all. And yes, it reminded me of like Big Willie style. And, you know, it just reminds me of putting in the CD when I was, you know, putting the CD into the, you know, and not into the radio, but like in the car, just bumping it while I'm like 10, 11, you know, like I'm looking at it now, and it just doesn't equate at all. It's so offsetting, man. And when I saw it, I'm just like, here we go. You know what I would have loved?
I would have loved if the genie comes out of the bottle and he starts doing his thing, and as Will Smith, and then Uncle Phil comes out and grabs him by the hair, like that hair piece on the top of his head, and he's like, "Will, get over here." I would have loved
it's
that.
like, yeah, little did you know it's really the Fresh Prince of Aladdin, like, just stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's because it didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel authentic at all.
And
But,
everybody's afraid of Uncle Phil. Everybody.
Exactly. Even Will Smith as a genie would always surrender to Uncle Phil. Like, no matter,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's just this.
Rest in peace to Uncle Phil, too, man.
Yes, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. Absolutely.
So, Donnie,
Most
I mean,
definitely, yes.
what I think is amazing is I set out today to have a good conversation with someone I respect and appreciate. I had no idea that our conversation was going to be Aladdin, Will Smith, library work, talking about Black Panther and T'Challa.
I know. I kind of looked at the itinerary. I think we were supposed to talk about college football and, like other things, especially like with Syracuse football. That's how conversation just goes sometimes. It just goes to the left, and we start talking about Uncle Phil dragging the Will Smith genie off screen. Like, that's just what it leads to.
That's why the genie wasn't afraid of Jafar. He knew that Uncle Phil was around the corner. Uncle Phil is the Cave of Wonders. He's, I was like, I remember because I watched Fresh Prince like when it was new, and I think it was on NBC, and I watched it religiously. And every time that Will would do something, you'd feel like you'd laugh and you'd feel good about it, and you're like, okay, like he got away with it, cool, whatever. But then you always had like this agitation, and even me sitting at home when Uncle Phil would yell at him, I thought, like, when he's like, go do the dishes, I was like, all right, and then I'd go up and start doing the dishes and stuff.
I felt that, and that's why his presence on screen was just there, man, and that's why their dynamic was key. I was just waiting for him to just yank him in the Aladdin movie. I'll just leave it at that. I was just waiting for him just to pull up.
Yeah, I love Uncle Phil. Love Uncle Phil. But here with Donnie Simmons, and, this is the beauty of Wake Up Call, because even though we went, what some people would say off script, we're right on script. For those that listen daily, you know that I don't write a dang thing down. There's no notebook here in the studio. I just let the conversation be what it is, because I think the best thing about talking to somebody is just talking, letting it be what it is, and listening to hear instead of listening to speak, which is very different. And, listening to hear, you're having a conversation. Listening to speak, you're waiting for them to stop so that you can have the floor. And I think before we get into college football and whatnot, going off of that point, how important, Donnie, is it for us today, of all colors, nationalities, creeds, ethnicities, religions, politics, backgrounds, to listen to each other to hear, as opposed to listening to each other just so we can speak?
So, I think the biggest thing that we as a country need to understand is that in order for things to move forward in a positive direction, we need to be much more unified, even within our own ethnic groups. And even as we see social justice organizations and, how they're trying to alleviate the civil unrest and the huge divide in this country, I think it's a reflection on not only, if we look at the administration, and I get it, depending on political views, where you are, this isn't where we need to be. It's a matter of hearing different perspectives and then finding a solution. And I think there are less solutions and more barking at each other without coming to an agreement on, yes, we disagree on certain things, but what can we do to have a promising future tomorrow? And when we look at our institutions, they tend to just fall back on their own respective privilege, what has been working for them personally, for generations, for decades, for all this time. And, when we look at also how we can come together as a country, it's in baby steps. And I think, in the wake of George Floyd, even with COVID, coincidentally, and how everybody saw the brutality and it's never too late to really get a full picture on the ills of this country. We started to see that, listen, police brutality is a real thing, but more importantly, there is a insidious institutional racism component to that I think that needs to be addressed, and that was the minds of many, especially white Americans. I think if we continue to move in this direction, and there is an agreement to the institutions at play that treat different ethnic groups, they treat ethnic groups differently than white groups of people, I think then we can kind of just, move in a positive direction, and we can have a solution to a lot of the problems that we see today.
And what I love is, Donnie, I mean, I'm sure you're mad, I'm mad. It's easy to have anger for what's going on right now, but nothing is solved with violence. Nothing is solved with throwing more fire on top of the fire that's already there. So I love that, your conversation is, how do we move forward together? Like you said, people are barking at each other, but who's talking about a solution? You can sit in an argument with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your mom, your dad, whoever, and you can keep talking about here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem, but you get a lot farther when you say, hey, honey, here's the issue. How do we solve this together? How do we work together? And I feel like so many times we focus on the issue, but we don't focus on what we're going to do to fix it. If you talk about, hey, there's a burglar in the house, and you sit in the driveway and you talk about how there's a burglar in your house, that doesn't change anything about it. But if you call the cops, if, maybe you pull down the street, you get away from it in case they have a weapon, you call there's certain things to do to be ready for it. Like me saying, my dog got off her leash and she's running all over the street. If I'm not going to get her, if I'm not calling her to me, but I'm just kind of narrating the fact that she's running around, I'm not solving the problem. And I feel like we have a lot of people just narrating, talking about this is what's going on, but what do we need to do from here? Because with all due respect, people that aren't stupid know that there's been a problem for a long time, and I don't want to talk about the problem anymore. I want to talk about the solution, and I want to talk about making the world better and safer. And when we talk about freedom for all, I want that to be a real thing and not just a nice sentiment.
Well, the only issue that I have with that is that has been a talking point that has been put on the table for decades, but not a lot has changed in terms of how we can then be on an equal platform, people of color. And when you see people of color in particular that are frustrated, that are mad, that are throwing, rocks and other different things into different establishments, it may be their own in the community. It is a natural feeling, a natural sense of frustration that in their situation, that is the only way in which they can let off steam and how they can release their anger, because many of them don't know any better. But that is also a reflection of the communities that they are in. And it's the result of redlining. It's the result of, different pockets of the country that are not given the allocated resources as they should. And when you understand their pain, then there can probably be a different approach to the situation. So yes, it is a matter of finding a solution. And I totally agree with you. Even when it comes to the individuals that are out there, whether looting, rioting, etc., because some just genuinely feel that this is the best way they can lash out. And even, unfortunately, with the case of George Floyd, we have to now see brutality in order to change rather than taking a proactive approach. However, when it comes to that, it's just a perpetual cycle, and then it adds talking points to both sides, especially the side of power and entitlement that view another group of people as barbaric or whatever. I think the bigger issue is to actually have both sides. And it really varies on the platform, because when we look at finding a solution, it comes from the federal government, or at least at the local and state level, where we can see true change, because in different areas of the country, you have different agendas. So it's really a matter of what you can see in person and at the local level. But in order to have this conversation, you need an outreach from both sides with a clear head and a series of solutions that can be amenable to both. And I think that nationwide, there can be a progressive step forward with different organizations locally that can come to terms with that, like I mentioned, at the local level. But there has to be a plan of action, and it's more a matter of the action rather than the talking, because the talking has been going for so long that we haven't seen the steady progression that I think most of us would like to see. Even, when you mentioned that, most smart people or more individuals who have just a sense of mind that is aware, knows, and they are familiar that there is a problem in this country. But I think that the commitment to solving that issue is the biggest thing, right? It's being proactive and taking a huge step out of a comfortable bubble, because being comfortable is not doing a damn thing, right? The uncomfortable position would be going out there and showing effort or being committed to a cause that will, stand the test of time. And even when you're gone, even when you have passed, you have now led the way for the future generation. And I think it's stepping out of our comfort zone to do that is extremely important.
Yeah, and that coming from Donnie Simmons here this morning on Wake Up Call. I don't think that anything's ever been done of any type of production not being out of your comfort zone. And I think, that's exactly where you have to be, is, to have these conversations and to have real ideas that come forward from them, Donnie. And I think for me, the hardest thing for me to deal with amongst all of this is the reality that I'm never going to understand racism. I'm never going to understand looking at somebody saying, well, I'm human, but I'm a different human. Like, I don't see any credence to that. I don't see any right to that. I wasn't brought up, in the way that, I have a very close relationship with God, and I've always seen people as people. So, I think for me, I had this conversation with my buddy Rob yesterday. I said, do you know how many amazing people that I wouldn't have in my life today if I was like, nope, you got to have the same religion, same color, same nationality, same background. My best friends would not be in my life. And so to me, people that have helped me out of tough times, people that I work with in business, people that, have a strong religious belief and maybe, help me in that area, whatever it may be. Some of my closest friends are Jewish, and I was raised Catholic, and there is no part of them or no part of me that we don't like of each other. And yet, there's some people that might be like, oh, no, you don't agree with me. I don't see life that way. I think that the more people that you get to know and the more you get to expand your horizon, the more fruitful your life can be, because if you listen and you connect yourself with people of different backgrounds and cultures and whatnot, then it starts to really create for you what the world is supposed to be, which I think, is a collection of thoughts and a collection of, talents and mindsets and different backgrounds and struggles and pain and adversity. I am not going to rest from now until as long as God has me on this planet. I'm not going to rest until I feel like in some way, shape, or form there is equality, there is safety, there is, you walking down the street, me walking down the street, and people looking at us the same way. I know you can't change everybody. I know that some hearts are hardened and they won't warm up for anything, but that doesn't mean that you and I can't try. And I think the biggest thing, Donnie, that you brought up is, to listen to the people that are affected. I think there needs to be a panel, there needs to be discussions, there needs to be public conversations with people in communities that experience this every day, because I tell people all the time, how do you know what it's like to be pregnant unless you talk to a pregnant woman? So how do you know what's going on in some of these neighborhoods unless you talk to the people who have lived there for 4 generations? And so I think, the only way to change the world is to listen to it and then to really sit down and create positive change. And with all due respect, if there's a bunch of people at the table and of the 100 people at the table, 67 of them want to work together, and the other 33 don't, then those 33 people can be excused from that table, and we can bring 33 other people in, because I don't want anybody sitting at the table that's not willing to work anymore.
I can't agree with you more, Dan. You're not everybody, all of us. We're not born to hate. It's a learned trait.
Yeah.
And it's typically from people who are older, our older generation, that have their bitter ideals and views that are then spewed, if not indoctrinated, to the youth. And it's us that create like these monstrosity issues, right? And I'm about to reach super far into an example that might be very left, so please bear with me. But, when you mentioned The Walking Dead earlier with Michonne, it just reminds me of that show in terms of how, like, people can kind of just mess shit up. Excuse my language, but,
yeah.
When you look at The Walking Dead, it's almost as if you would think that in a, dystopian world where zombies are taking over, you would find a large, if not just insurmountable coalition of people working together to make sure that not only they can remediate the issue of the zombies, but they can live in prosperity and try to find a way in which they can, grow a community so they can set a series of communities so there's some life for humanity and civilization. But instead, you have a large group of people who believe in that divide and conquer and that power hungry, they have that power hungry mentality. And I think it just starts there. Like, there always has to be a social class. And to a degree where we have the power and you don't, and now I need to take from you. And it's a referendum on what we're dealing with today in terms of the institutions that are in power, that have oppressed a group of people, and then just another group of people that can't highlight that, like they can't acknowledge it. And why is it? Like, why is that? It's because of the generations before them that have taught them that ideology. Like, this is okay. That group of people, bad, they're kind of whatever. We need to either fend for ourselves or support ourselves, and for whatever reason, it's like this ill hate towards others. That's the biggest thing. And it's bringing this attention to light and understanding that moving forward, this will hold us back. This will continue to hold us back. And I think, yes, the discussion forums are extremely important. To have these conversations are also very important. But you have folk that also have very strong beliefs, and they will refuse to get out of their own bubble. So it's a matter of policy, it's a matter of voting, and having a system where equality can at least have a chance, and more groups of people are given opportunity. So it's the discussion forums, but as we talked about before, a solution that can be substantive, that we can see, and it's something where long term it can have a profound effect in our communities.
Awesome conversation, awesome statements here made today, compelling, and to anybody that's listening that has a heart to, say, okay, let's work on this. It's not a hard thing to do. It shouldn't be a hard thing to do. And we've been on this planet for thousands of years. This should not be a difficult thing to accomplish and try to figure out. I mean, for goodness sakes, folks, if you need an example of how people can work together of all different backgrounds, there's been over 2,000 people that have been on this show, and we've all had conversations, and we've all laughed, and we've all had fun. If you need an example of what's it like to have people get together that aren't used to getting, it should be there's not any use to getting together. I remember as a kid, my grandmother was on this street, and it was a predominantly white street, and there was one house, African American, and there was two brothers that were there. One, I think, a little bit older than me. One around my age or a little bit younger. Nobody ever asked me to play basketball, and I played basketball growing up. I still, love basketball today. And I was walking by, and they're like, "Hey, you want to play basketball?" And I said, "Sure." And I remember there was one time this brown car came by, and there was a white guy in the car, and he came up, and he slowed down, and he looked at us, and he looked at me, and he looked at them, and then eventually he drove off. And I remember thinking to myself, why is this so strange for you to see this through your eyes? I mean, these are the only, I was like, with all due respect, these are the only kids that asked me to play. I could care less what color is anybody. I said, how about this? This is the only house whose parents taught them to be open and be nice to people, because right next door there's kids, and they don't care. So, I mean, to me it was like, you know, I just wanted to play basketball. I just wanted to be out there. And I think that, you know, in my life, what's been really real to me is seeing things that never leave my head because you know that they are wrong. And then trying to figure out a way to address them where you can really, I mean, with all due respect, nobody should be angry at conversations like this unless you have hate in your heart. There should be nobody going, oh, you want everyone to be happy and feel equal and safe? Well, I don't like that. I mean, that's insane for somebody to believe that. But unfortunately, that does happen in today's world. But it's not Donnie. It's not me. And hopefully those of you listening and watching, it's not you. And, you know, I feel that instead of, you know, focusing on everybody that refuses to change, we need to work with the people that want to. And I always liken it to building a house. You know, if you got people on one side, you got people on the other side, and they're supposed to build a house, but neither side's talking to each other, they're going to build their versions of it. But at the end of the day, you have to connect the house in the middle, and you're not going to be able to because you built it with different pieces and different elements here and different pieces and different elements there. So you're just going to have half of a house on both sides that's going to fall upon itself because it's not unified. And I think that that's a way to put it together.
Yeah, that's how it should be. That's how it should be. And I do believe, I mean, even historically, we have made strides, but I don't think it's enough for where we would be satisfied. I just feel as a nation, as a country, to where we can not only have a deep sense of affirmation, like, you know what, like, this is looking good. Like, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Not saying it's never been like that, because any progress is good progress. But I think that all of us should hold ourselves accountable, and we should all be a part of this journey to move in that direction where unity can now be a part of our DNA, instead of always being divided and having this cold sense of separation, or, you know, excluding one group for another. And I think if we maintain that mentality, or we have, you know, certain pockets of the country that have this, you know, cold sense of reality, or that have their stern beliefs in terms of how we operate as a country, we will just be stumped every single time we try to get something done in a progressive way. And that example that you shared with you as a child, just trying to play basketball and having, you know, a bunch of black kids, you know, across the street that invited you to play, that is the simplicity of not even looking at race, not even looking at color, but just, hey, would you like to have fun with me in this activity? Yeah. And then that develops and grows into, hey, would you like to help me develop this comprehensive plan to help either this community, this group of people, or this establishment? And then it goes and it evolves from there, regardless of the individual, regardless of their background, regardless of their religious connection. But because we tend to have, you know, petty, I guess, tendencies, and pettiness turns into hate in a way, it becomes very toxic. Now, that might be a human condition because people are very envious, but I think the larger scale is just looking past the very veiled image that we have of others. But until then, we have to continue to have these conversations and to continue to find solutions. Because if we don't, then you will continue to see the the ills of America just rising above and showing the world our face. You know, like, this is who we are. Like, the hate that you see, this is who we are and who we've always been. But, yeah, man, so until then, until we really have a serious, plan of action, which is key, we'll continue to see the issues that persist today.
Yeah. And every good thing starts with an outstretched hand. Just like those two gentlemen to me a long, long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Donnie, I would be remiss if I didn't close it out, though, with some thoughts. Our conversation today has been everything beyond the world of sports. It's so much bigger. And the tagline of Wake Up Call since day zero is where sports meets life. And you embodied that today, and this was incredible. I feel like God's sitting here going like, hey, man, I know you guys were going to talk about football, but I got other stuff on my mind.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But
That's how the conversation swings, man.
Right, and I do, but before we do hop off here, I do want to get your thoughts on where you think, and I don't want to, obviously we'll have plenty of conversations coming up, and there's so much good here, and I know that everybody's listening and here and, seeing this knows that we talked about so many bigger things. I want to ask you about Syracuse football and about, what you've seen in the college football climate and whatnot, how strange it is that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are starting later, and the Big 12 has this, and the ACC and the SEC, and they're all playing different schedules and a different number of games, and it's crazy and confusing. So I do want to get your thoughts on that. But before I do that, I want to thank you so incredibly, incredibly much, Donnie, because I found out today in talking to you for a couple minutes that I don't want you to come on here every few months. I really want to work on doing some consistent things with you, because I love the fact that you and I have seamlessly had a really awesome conversation about so many different things, and it's so good. So before I ask you about football, I want to make sure that I want you back here more often.
Listen, man, you got my number. We can definitely make things happen. I will always be welcome to your call. And yeah, man, we can make something happen, big fellas. So I'm eager. I'm looking forward to that. And I'd love to come on your show again to, talk about other things, whether it is Will Smith or Aladdin or, social justice and how we can move in a positive direction. I'm with that. But yeah, to answer your question about college football in general, right? If we're looking at athletics, we're looking at college athletes and how you have, different leagues like the Pac-12 that, decided to start their season, but they took the precaution of, sitting out or even just, not participating for the entire season itself. I have no problem with that. Like, we live in very confusing and crazy times when we're looking at this deadly virus that we know today affects football players, especially if one contracts it. There is a chance that even when they have recovered from COVID, they can have either a neurological or just physical issue moving forward. There was this article that I read, and forgive me if I don't have all the details, so obviously I'm paraphrasing, but you have a bunch of players that contracted it and a small percentage that have this respiratory heart issue that was left from COVID. I have no problem with teams that just elect to not participate in this year's season. Without a doubt, the football players come first. I know that there's a business that needs to operate like a well-oiled machine, and that's fine because I know that institutions everywhere, college programs, football programs specifically, are losing an enormous amount of money in terms of revenue, but you're there at the best interest of the student first, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is the emphasis. So even my approach to college football, it was tough initially for me to be invested because I was perplexed at how, college coaches or even, athletic directors were really pushing for teams to play, because I understand that everybody wants to watch and be entertained Saturday afternoon with the teams that we love. But do we do it at the expense of the athlete to put them at risk? Especially if there isn't a comprehensive plan. Now, there has been a success. For me, I haven't heard any startling student breakouts when it comes to COVID or an abundance of athletes catching COVID, but I do think that there's always a risk because students are on campus and they're mingling with other people, and we know now that it is easily transmitted and it is deadly. So do we really want to have that risk? Those are my feelings, because I'm going to do whatever. Like, if I was in a position of power, if I was the athletic director, I'm going to do whatever it takes to preserve my players, because football at this point, or athletics in general, will be at the afterthought, in my opinion, when it comes to the safety of, the players that I govern. It's all a matter of their health, their well-being. So that's how I feel about it, for real.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that very much so, and I think that, it does have to come down to the health and safety of everybody above everything else. I mean, you could be playing and everything's fine and good, but down the road, how many people really genuinely care if their favorite player who doesn't play anymore now has, a respiratory disease? Some people just move on to the next person. I care about everybody. And the thing is, I become friends with so many that I told my buddy Rob, when I brought him up before, Rob Drummond, he had, that he knows of, 9 concussions in his career. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, I love football, but I love Rob more. And I told him, I said, I don't know what I would do if you had CTE and one day, like you didn't know who I was, or you got violent or something like that. Like, I can't even fathom, because that would be my Walking Dead. Like, I can't even fathom that. So, it's like, I love the sport, but more than anything, these are people, these are vessels of light. They are, they're you, they're me, they're your brother, they're your sister, your mom, your dad, so on and so forth, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. Like, we have to make sure that when we do what we do, because we can't live in fear forever, and this thing could end up being like the flu, and it's going to come and go and do whatever it does and whatnot. But we have to take the necessary precautions to give ourselves the best chance, and I think that that's important.
But taking the necessary precaution also means establishing and setting a comprehensive plan that is not only practical, but it can prevent a huge outbreak. And I think initially when, teams decided to, not play for the season, or at least for the fall, that was a serious, red flag that there wasn't anything in place nationally. It was almost as if teams were just doing their own thing. Yeah. I think even Syracuse had to struggle with coming to grips with even practice, because I think players at one point decided not to practice because they were concerned about their health. Am I correct on that? I think that was...
Yeah, there was a protocol and a question of how many times they were supposed to be tested, and when they felt like they didn't get the answer that they wanted and things weren't clear, they backed away from practice. And Dino said, he said, listen, we dropped the ball on it, we corrected it, and, he supported the player's decision.
And I think it's there, because you've been dropping bars and gems and insight this entire interview, but, you mentioned not too long ago that, it's the, well, I was about to just lost my train of thought. I think you were emphasizing how fans look at athletes where if one drops, then they just go on to the next, and then they praise that athlete. Now, it is a very dysfunctional state of play. I mean, that's why fans are short for fanatics. But at the same time, we're not necessarily beholden to fans. We're beholden to the players, and we're beholden to the necessary precaution that is then given by either the coaching staff or the athletic director. So everything can be fluid when it comes to games, playing, making sure our student athletes are healthy, etc. Because they come first. They do come first, like always, without a doubt.
Yeah, that coming from Donnie Simmons this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Donnie, it has been it's an understatement to say this, but it's been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Everything that we talked about,
yes, sir.
Everything we got to do.
Now, before you conclude, quick question: are you also interviewing Sam Rogers?
Yeah, Sam is coming up right after this. Your teammate who is running to represent. God forbid anybody does this, to represent Central New York, our wants, our needs, and our desires. So I'm like, Sam, let's go. Because
I can't, first of all, I can't pick. I'm about to gas up Sam Rogers. Yo, Sam, if you're hearing me, bro, yo, you are an amazing human being. You are a great teammate, and a great captain as well. There were I can't imagine or picture anybody else that would be in a better position than Sam to represent. As you said, you mentioned a Senate. He's running for Senate?
New York State Senate, the 53rd District, which is representing Central New York and our wants, our needs, and our desires that many people don't ever listen to. So I'm very happy to know that, because New York State is not just an island. There's a giant piece of it that is attached to that island, and he wants to make sure that the people up here in my hometown, where I dug my roots, that we're taken care of. So I'm very appreciative that Sam is doing this, because it's about dang time that somebody hears what Central New York wants. So
absolutely. And before I leave, I just want to give a huge shout out to Sam. Hope everything works out for him and his campaign. And he's just an amazing individual that truly cares for the people, and his commitment is just undeniable. So, yeah, got to show love to him. And like I mentioned, Sam, if you're listening, big bro, yo, best of luck to everything, to you and your family. But
go ahead, sir.
No, I was just about to say, thank you, Dan, for having me on the show.
Yeah, man, thank you. And I don't even know a proper way to say see you later, because I want to keep you on here. So we will talk. We'll talk soon. And, dude, you made my day, so thank you for everything.
Hey, Dan, much love. I appreciate it. And, yeah, man, enjoy the rest of your day, but we'll definitely be in touch, without a doubt.
All right, man, sounds good. Be good.
All right, you too.
Take care. That coming once again from Donnie Simmons here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're going to jump to Sam Rogers here in just a second. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, Sam will be on the show. Just got a massive endorsement from his teammate Donnie Simmons.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9
Campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to K9 Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.